How do you know what changes to make in revision? It's a question that constantly challenges writers with every step of revising a story. And during my live stream the other day, I started thinking this exact question. You see, although I'd analyzed the story already and figured out what changes I wanted to make, somewhere in the tired recesses of my mind, I realized that some of these changes were still too vague. And so if I actually wanted to start draft 2, I'd first need to figure out how to make these changes more specific and actionable. So in this video, I am aiming to figure out exactly what changes I'm going to make and create specific actionable steps to make these changes. And I'll be sharing what changes I'm going to be making with you. So I'm going to be starting off here by going through the list of changes that I'd already created and taking time to remove some of the vagueness with some of these changes and making them very clear and actionable, so that in the end, I have a list that I can literally just go through one by one, and when I'm done with the list, I'll be done with draft 2. So that is my goal here, and that is what I'm going to start with right now. And I actually did work through a few of these things during that live stream. I worked on improving character motivation, especially for Ella and Lucian, as well as for the opponent characters. So those were the main 3 kind of vague points that I cleared up during the live stream. I still need to work on clearing up vagueness for the vast majority of these points. So for example, I have some kind of vague ideas right now, like this. Upgrade the scenes to see if they can have more interesting stakes. I don't know how I'm going to be upgrading them to make sure they have interesting stakes. I don't know how I'm going to upgrade Pramana's first scene to make it more powerful. I don't know specifically how I'm going to express a lot of these things. So let's get started on actually going through some of these and trying to make them more specific and actionable. Okay, so I've gone through the entire list and made these vague steps into actionable ones. So what I'm going to focus on for draft 2, in a word, is characters. Because I plot so intensely, I found when I was reading the story itself, it felt like it was paced pretty well. It felt like each of the scenes was leading from one to the other, and the story overall felt like it was working well. However, the problem that I felt when I was reading was that characters didn't necessarily feel so consistent, that there were lacking motivations in the story, and that I wasn't really sure why these characters cared. Because of that, I didn't really care as much as well. So the main thing I'm going to be focusing on are characters, and that includes various different things. One of the major things I'm going to be focusing on is weaving in more believable character motivation. So for instance, with Ella, I need to make her character motivation more high stakes. I need to make her motivation stronger. So it actually makes sense that she cares this much about what she's doing in the story. But for Lucian, I need to make his character motivation more subtle, because the way that I expressed it, I think it was too much in character thought, and it was too much him having an awareness of what's going on in his mind already at the beginning of the story, when I don't think it really makes sense for him to recognize what he's doing and what's going on at a conscious level. So I'm trying to make his character motivation more subtle so that the reader can kind of pick up on it based on observing him, but he himself won't be aware of it yet. Also, I'm including moments for the opponent characters to show their own motivations, so that they aren't these two-dimensional cardboard cutouts, that they actually have motivations and justifications for why they're opposing the lead characters. Another of my character focuses will be increasing character conflict in the group that Ella and Lucian are a part of and traveling in. Another will be including the effects of a large important character that was in the previous book, but that doesn't actually have any screen time in this book. And I want to make sure that his actions are being felt by the characters in this book, even though he's not present, because he's so important. And the last of the character-related changes will be including quirks and personality for the supporting characters, because I feel like these characters are a little bit flat and they're not really coming across as being that different from each other. So I want to spice them up a little bit, and that is one other thing I'm going to focus on. As far as non-character changes, there's only a few, but they're definitely important ones to make here. There are a few scenes I identified as being a little bit flatter that I'm increasing the stakes in. I also realized that Pramana's opening scene is the only one that's not so gripping and interesting. So I'm going to change that one to be a little bit more high stakes and to draw in the reader a little bit more. And the last thing I want to focus on as far as scenes and story is making sure that I'm drawing out the tension in the more intense scenes, in those major plot points, the first plot point, the midpoint, the Dark Night of the Soul, All Is Lost, as well as the climax. I want to make sure that I'm drawing out the tension in these scenes to create as much intensity as I can and really make sure the reader is sucked in during these. So those are the main focuses I have for the second draft, and now that I've figured out these things, I can actually start on writing draft 2. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in the next video about writing this sequel. And I'm curious, how do you decide what you're going to include in these first stages of revision? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, make sure to smash that like button so the YouTube knows to share with other writers like you. And if you want to see how I read through the first draft and came up with these changes in the first place, then watch this video next. Ooh, child. What song is that? Things are gonna get easier. I don't know what this song is.